Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to Curious Kingdom. Today we are recapping action science fiction film In Time. In a future world, time has become the primary currency, and humans have been genetically engineered to stop aging at 25. Their bodies are programmed to have a maximum lifespan of 1 year unless they acquire more time. Their remaining time is displayed on their arms in the form of digital clocks. The concept of the time-based economy is explained, where time can be transferred, earned, and spent. A film follows the journey of Will Salas, a young man living in the impoverished Dayton district. He wakes up to see that he only has 24 hours left on his clock. Will's surroundings depict a grim and impoverished environment. He works in a factory, where people are seen struggling to survive, and time is constantly on their minds. The world is divided into distinct districts, with the wealthy residing in the luxurious New Greenwich district, while the poor struggle in Dayton. The disparity between the rich and the poor is stark, as time becomes a marker of social status. Will interacts with his mother, Rachel, and greets her for 50th birthday. Celebrations were interrupted when Rachel expresses concern about their limited time and the harsh realities of their lives. While leaving for work, she tells Will that she has to pay their loan and will meet him 2 days after. She told him not to be late at bus station so he can give her some time. She then gave Will time for a decent lunch. On his way to work, Will was greeted by Maya, who asked Will for a minute to spare. Will gives her 5 minutes and headed to work. One evening, Will visits a local bar in Dayton, where his friends invited him for gambling. Will refused to play but asked back for 1 hour which they owed him. At the bar, he encounters Henry Hamilton, a wealthy man who has lived for over a century. Henry was paying for everyone present in the bar, hence drawing unnecessary attention. Will told Henry to leave as it was unsafe with so much time on his wrist in such a locality. Henry refuses and continues with drinking. Later, a gang named Minutemen Gangsters enters the bar and everyone leaves. Will refuses to leave and watches everything from behind the door. The gang leader, 40s, tells Henry he wanted his time. Henry claimed to be nauseous and headed to washroom, where Will jumped over Minutemen Gangsters and helped Henry escape. They escaped the gangsters and headed to an abandoned building. There they gets to know each other. Henry tells Will that he is 105 years old and is fed up with his life. He explains his weariness with the endlessness of time and expresses his desire to die. Will tells Henry that how people in Dayton are working so bad, running all the time to see another day, while he is so reckless. Henry reveals that rich people are inflating prices and controlling everything so that more time is transferred to them, and poor people keeps on dying. After the banter, they both goes to sleep. Next morning, while Will was asleep, Henry transferred his century to him and left warehouse. Will wakes up with century on his wrist with Henry missing. On further looking, he saw Henry sitting on side of a bridge waiting for his clock to time out. Will runs towards Henry but was too late and Henry dies. Will is shocked by the unexpected windfall and the realization of the immense wealth he now possesses. Next morning, after giving a decade to his friend Boris, he heads to meet his mother Rachel. Rachel came to know that bus fares have gone up in 2 days. She can't afford the journey back. She decided to run her way in desperation. The two are in race against time, with clock ticking on Rachel's hand with each step closer to death. Finally, they two see each other but came few seconds short and Rachel dies in Will's arms. Despite having a century on his wrist, Will failed to save his mother. Meanwhile, timekeepers retrieve Henry's body from the river and starts investigating, thinking someone killed Henry and stole his time. Some time passes, and after gathering himself up, Will ventures into New Greenwich with his newfound wealth. He exchanges some of his time for a stylish suit, transforming his appearance. He hires a cab to New Greenwich, paying more than a year in tolls on the way for crossing time zones, borders which separates different social classes. Driver asked Will what he was truly doing in Greenwich, to which he replied that he wanted people of New Greenwich to pay. Will enters the opulent world of the rich, characterized by lavish lifestyles, extravagant parties, and a general sense of detachment from the struggles faced by those in Dayton. He becomes an outsider, observing the stark contrast between poverty and wealth. After exiting his car, he started to run due to his old habits and caught attention of a woman named Sylvia. Will stays at a luxurious hotel and wakes up with 105 years on his wrist. He heads for the breakfast, where he enjoyed best meal of his life, even flirting with the waitress. Meanwhile, at the timekeeper's base, they saw Will in the CCTV footage and deducted that he is the man crossing various time zones going to New Greenwich. They assemble more data about Will, and Raymond states that he knows Will's dad. Will enters a club and finds a spot at a poker table alongside Philippe, an extremely rich person with ages in his time. Philippe raised 50 years and a hand. Will also goes all in and wins the hand, amounting centuries. Will's concentration shifts from the game to the exquisite woman, Sylvia, who sits close to Philippe. Philippe rolls up his sleeves, uncovering just about 10 centuries worth of time. He then discusses the immense gap between poor people and the rich, supporting it as survival of the fittest. He saw Will checking out Sylvia and inquires as to whether he believes she's his grandma, mother, or spouse. Will just says that she's beautiful. Philippe presents her as his little girl and she welcomes him to a party. The following day, Will bought a brand new car and drove it to Philip's party. There he's acquainted with 3 ages of ladies that look as though they're sisters. Will was odd one out among the fashionable group at party despite trying hard to blend in. Sylvia and Will get to know about each other and their discussion drives them to the dance floor. She inquires as to whether he comes from the ghetto. However, Will dodges the question. Sylvia opens up to him about her boring life and how the time that she has shackles her. Will takes Sylvia outside to the beach, initially reluctant, but later Sylvia also joins him in the ocean. They both were enjoying the moment when someone screamed her name from the shore and they heads back to the party. Philippe requests that Will joins him for a round of poker, but suddenly timekeeper Raymond barges in and takes Will in custody. He asks him for what reason he's in New Greenwich and how he has more than 1,000 years of time. Will answers sincerely and says that Henry gave it to him and later committed suicide. Raymond questions his clarification, confiscates his time and takes him into custody. Will asks him for what reason he is investigating Henry's murder when murders occur in the ghetto on a daily basis. Raymond is amazed by his words as it helps him to remember Will's dad. Will then, at that point, goes after the timekeepers, taking their gun and using Sylvia as a hostage to leverage his way out. Raymond pursues their vehicle and rams their car, making them lose control. Will skillfully outdrives Raymond and escapes. Will requests Sylvie for some time, however she denies. Next morning they run over traffic spikes late intentionally on a bridge, leading their car to crash. Forties and his men approach them, stealing their time. With minutes left on their wrists, they race towards a jewelry store. Looking at their desperation, he offers just 2 days, which Will accept it. They stroll through the city discussing Sylvia's privately owned company. Will asks the amount they're worth and she answers, it's an enormous amount to the point that it won't make any difference. Will calls Raymond and requests Philippe to move 1,000 years to the ghetto city in return for Sylvia. Raymond cautions him that assuming he proceeds, he'll wind up dying like his dad. Later at night they both heads to Will's apartment. She gets to know about recent passing of his mom. He thinks back about his dad and how he was a card shark like him, yet entirely on an alternate game. His dad would play a game likened to betting, however utilizing his time. They figure out they're around a similar age and their bond develops further. Next morning Philippe doesn't hold his end of the deal, does not transfer any time. Sylvia gets disheartened with her dad. Despite this, Will told Sylvia to go home and that she is free. He accompanies her to the telephone stall, giving her a weapon as a goodbye gift, and she gives back with a kiss. She calls her dad and was angry on him for not valuing her. As they talk, Will is behind her, unaware of Raymond pointing a weapon at him. Sylvia turns and sees Raymond, and without a second thought, she shoots him. Will focuses a weapon at a draining Raymond. However, rather than killing him, he gives time to Raymond and the two drive off utilizing his vehicle. Will expresses that she should get back to her dad. However, Sylvia doesn't want to get back to her exhausting life. In his office, Philippe converses with his accomplices and guarantees them that he didn't pay any time and time zone balance is maintained. They question his capacity to resolve this issue. However, Raymond goes into the room before Philippe has an opportunity to account for himself. He enlightens Philippe regarding her little girl not having any desire to be saved. Philippe apologizes and tells his daughter is brainwashed by Will. Raymond doesn't move and informs him that he intends to capture his little girl. Philippe attempts to pay him with his time. However, Raymond stays uninterested and leaves. They discuss Will's intention to distribute time to individuals, and she says that she can assist him with getting the time he wants. Later at the time bank, a truck crashes through the front door. The two rob the bank, taking as much time putting away as possible. They urge the borrowers to get as much time as they need, and a chaos ensues. Will gave time to Greta Meyer and to a local time distributor who gives time to Poor. Meanwhile, gang leader 40s proceeds to bug and kill individuals for time. He then sees a hefty reward on catching Will and Sylvia. Later at night, timekeepers surrounded an inn where the two stay. Will and Sylvia notice they're encircled, so they leap through the window to get away. Raymond pursues them through the roads and the dim back streets. They advance up the rooftops and a shootout initiates, but both of them succeed in escaping. Later they checked into a hotel and bought all of the rooms, to which receptionist agreed. While doing so, they come into notice of a greedy young man. 40s kept on searching for Will and Sylvia, and through a greedy man got information about their whereabouts at the inn. Will and Sylvia acknowledge that assuming they get found out, they will pass on at the period they've spent together. Out of nowhere, the entryway gets wrecked by 40s and his men. Feeling liberal, 40s allows Will an opportunity to play for his life. A game of arm wrestling for time, one like Will's father used to play. Wills agrees. Initially, 40s was draining Will of his time. Then, at that point, he turns it around and 40s loses calm. His subordinates approach the table and the nervousness in his eyes develops. Will takes out a gun strapped to his ankle and shoots everybody while siphoning 40s dry. Will and Sylvia stand on a housetop seeing how costs continue to rise. Will feels miserable, saying that the rich will simply increase the cost of living and their efforts are in vain. He says that they need to steal million years to make any difference. Philippe enters a building with a plenty of bodyguards encircling him. Sylvia comes there and pretends to surrender. Meanwhile, Will, disguised as one of the guards, points gun at Philippe's head and takes him hostage. He orders the security to put their weapons down and leaves with Philippe. In Philippe's office inside a vault lies a gadget with 1 million years which they steal. Philippe attempts to explain them that society will crumble if this time reaches to unacceptable hands. Will expresses that there will constantly be somebody ready to forfeit individuals for a shot at mortality. Will can't contain his resentment and points a gun at him. He remarks that immortality does not merit the death of even a single person. The two then, at that point, leave. In the interim, police vehicles begin to block the exit. The timekeepers shoot at Will and Sylvia's car, but they get out unharmed. Raymond doesn't give up and chases after them. He intercepts and crashes into them. Will asks Maya to distribute the 1 million years. Raymond points a gun at the two, but the overjoyed crowd blocks his line of sight, allowing for them to escape. Raymond hijacks a car and ultimately catches them in the middle of the road. Raymond admits that he's also from the ghetto, but time zones have to be maintained, whatever the cost may be. Will asked him to return some time he gave him while he was bleeding out. While talking, Raymond suddenly realizes that his time is up and he collapses dead. Will and Sylvie runs towards Raymond's car. With seconds on their clock, Will gets there first and runs towards Sylvie to also help her. Because of time stolen, a lot of people are seen crossing different time zones and entering richer areas. Later, in a different time zone, they are seen robbing a larger time bank. The film concludes with Will and Sylvia's journey continuing. Their fight against the unjust system and their efforts to bring about change represent a beacon of hope. The film leaves the audience with a sense of possibility and a belief that the movement for equality and justice will continue to grow and thrive. Their legacy lies in inspiring others to challenge oppressive systems and work towards a more equitable world where everyone has the opportunity to live a meaningful life, regardless of their time remaining. That's all for today, folks. Like, share, and subscribe for more such content. Curious Knight signing off. Stay safe, stay curious.